Hi, my name is Catherine Pavone. I am your host of Z-Files podcast, where we bring your curiosity to our conversations. Today, I have a special guest, Patrick Best. Would you like to introduce yourself a little bit?
Sure. So my name is Patrick Best. I'm a lawyer in the area, and I'm running for judge of the Monroe County Court of Common Pleas.
Perfect. Okay, so you worked in a lot of areas, bankruptcy, tax, family law, like so many. Which one do you enjoy most, and where do you see the biggest impact for working class?
Sure. So I think my favorite area of practice as a lawyer was always consumer protection. So I've done consumer protection as a private lawyer. I've also done it through the Monroe County District Attorney's Office. So we were actually able to start the consumer protection division there. And when you talk about impact on the working class, it's the same answer. I think consumer protection definitely is going to have the biggest impact on the working class because we're constantly fighting for just making sure that the laws are followed. So whether it be financial institutions that have been charging illegal interest or illegal fees. We just recently filed a big suit against StubHub for charging illegal and deceptive fees. So, if you were going to buy a concert ticket, for example, you would go on and it would say $25. And then as you clicked through, you would find out it wasn't really $25, it was really $45.
More money, yeah.
So all of those things that are like hidden into the system, those are the things we fight with consumer protection. So biggest impact for the working class, definitely consumer protection law for sure.
It's amazing. So you built your career around protecting consumers, from class actions to individual claims, and even starting a consumer protection division. What do you believe are the most pressing consumer threats today, and how is the systems failing to protect everyday people?
It's definitely new financial products and just different financial institutions that are able to sneak in without being caught or without anyone really pushing on the enforcement issues. So like to give you an example, the StubHub issue is one where everybody knows about it. Everybody's bought concert tickets. Everybody knows that they charge all these fees, but it doesn't ever make sense for any individual person to sue over it. You're not going to sue StubHub for the $20 convenience fee because it's going to cost you way more than the $20 to pursue that claim. So that people end up building that into their business model, and unless we do something big, so whether it be a class action or we do it through the district attorney's office, a lot of times they'll sneak in under the radar. And a lot of different types of financial institutions will do that. So mortgage lenders often will sneak illegal fees in because no individual consumer is going to catch that, no one's going to sue them, and they think, even if they do get sued, it's the cost of doing business. If one consumer sues me and I only have to pay $1,500 or $3,000, that's part of the business model because I'm going to get more consumers
in the long run
who just actually pay the fee. So the biggest threat is definitely going to be just constantly trying to evolve past all the different consumer protection laws. New financial products come up every day. They won't squarely fit within the laws that we have, and people try to sneak things through that are otherwise deceptive or illegal.
Yeah, that actually happened to me once. It was like, I get random Apple service fees like every week. It's so random, and I normally don't say nothing because it's like $3, $4, like $10. But one time it was like $60, so I was like, all right, I gotta call. And then I called, and I got a refund, and it was like just handled so quickly.
It's 100% what it is. It's part of the business model. So that, like, if you look at the StubHub case that we filed, StubHub actually did a study where they knew that if they charged fees in the way that they charged them, that people would pay them.
Because it's like a few dollars. It's like more of a hassle, I guess, to get a lawyer and like sue them.
Right, and if they told you that they were charging these fees and what they were actually for, you may not actually pay the ticket fee. So they do it in a way that's intentionally deceptive. And it's not just StubHub that does that. Of course, everybody knows about Ticketmaster and all the different things that are like that. But
they all pretty much do that,
and like all these different financial institutions are doing it with different types of credit card fees or different types of mortgage
There's
interest.
so many different fees.
Yes, and it just sneaks through because the goal is if I get $1 extra from everybody, it adds up to millions.
It does add up. It does, yeah. Well, that's amazing. But we're here because you're campaigning. So at the end of the day, what's driving you to run for judge? What's your personal why? Like, why did you do this?
So for the last 9 or so years, I've been a hearing officer at the Monroe County Court of Common Pleas. So I've been doing divorce hearings. So I was appointed by the president judge basically to any divorce case that wasn't able to settle, they would come before me and I would either work with them to settle the case or I would make the decision. So in a lot of ways, it's like a judicial position. We manage a docket, we work with parties to settle cases, we issue written decisions, we hold trials. So it's very, very similar to being a judge. I've been doing that for about 9 years. And in that process, I've met a lot of attorneys. A lot of them have come through my hearings. And when we heard that there were going to be 2 vacancies this year and that 2 new judges would be elected, a lot of the lawyers that I worked with actually asked me to run.
Oh, that's amazing.
Yeah, they said that they thought that I was really good at getting cases settled. They liked the way I handled my hearings, and they thought that it would be good as a judge, and they asked me if I would consider doing it, and I did. So here I am.
Oh, that's amazing. So you got encouraged too.
I did.
All right.
Yeah.
That's great. So judges are often tasked with making difficult decisions. Can you share a personal experience or process that you've gone through to make a difficult decision? Like, how will the audience be able to tell, like, what's your process?
So I really am extremely logical, extremely analytical.
All right.
Everything comes down to logic, analytics, facts. So when I'm making decisions, I always start distilling everything down to facts, remove all of the emotion. Then I look at the law, and I just try to match up the facts to the law, and I try to find what is legal, what is proper, what is fair, what is equitable,
Right.
Balancing everything that I'm supposed to balance. And in divorce, sometimes it's difficult because
it is.
even the law tells you, the law says you're allowed to consider these 16 factors, and it's like you have to balance all of those. So it gets difficult, but we always just work to try to find what's fair in every individual situation, removing all of the emotional components. And that's the hard part, right?
Yeah.
So especially in divorce, because it's emotionally charged, you're dealing with a family that may be breaking up, they may have kids,
Yeah.
they may have all these different things you have to consider, and you have to be able to pull all of that emotion out of it, distill it down to its facts, use logic, reason, line it up with the law, and then come up with the answer. And that's my process. It's easier said than done.
Yeah, of course.
But it's really it's a lot of it's experience too. Like what does it look like? What is fairness look like? And it's doing hundreds of these hearings over and over and over again to figure out what is fair.
Right, because it's not always like black or white. There's so much gray area.
It's never black or white,
Yeah.
unfortunately.
Yeah. Do you have like an example of like a personal or work experience of where you like really had a difficult decision, or you're not allowed to share something like that?
Oh, like a personal? I don't know. I mean, I don't know. A personal decision where I struggled?
Yeah. It was like beyond logic, you know?
Beyond logic. Personal decision beyond logic. Honestly, I can't think of anything that comes to mind because I try to make everything as logical as I possibly could. I can't think of anything.
That's
At the top
impressive.
of my head.
I'm not often analytical.
Yeah, it's just, not everybody makes decisions the same way, but that's how I try to boil mine.
Right, perfect. Okay, so let's talk about judicial temperament. Everyone claims that they'll be fair and impartial, but what does that actually look like in Monroe County courtroom with real people and real issues? Like, how do you define fairness?
So in every case where there's 2 sides,
Right.
that's not every case. Some cases are one-sided. Sometimes you don't actually have an opposing party, you're just presenting an issue to the court. But if you have an issue where there's 2 sides, you always have to balance the interest of both parties. It could look very differently depending on the type of case. So I already gave you one example with divorce, right?
Yeah.
So you have 2 divorcing parties and both of them are trying to advance their interest. What is fairness? Fairness isn't necessarily giving one side or the other side what they're looking for, or even meeting in the middle.
Yeah.
It could be, but that's not always necessarily what's fair. What's fair is what the law tells us we should be looking at. The law wants us to balance all of these different factors and make sure that the parties are ending up where they should be. If you were to look at something like the criminal side, fairness it would be making sure that you balance the rights of the victims versus the rights of the accused.
Yeah.
Making sure that the Commonwealth is upholding their burden, that they're doing what they're supposed to prove their case, but also making sure that justice is served.
Yeah.
So it's a constant balancing act. When we talk about being fair, what we're really talking about is following the law, balancing the rights of both parties. We don't want to injure either party going through the process. In fact, the court's role is to play referee, right? To make sure that no party takes advantage of the other party, and we're constantly weighing those back and forth.
Nice. So a lot of judges lean on their experience as prosecutors. So if you have a consumer first background, is that a strength, or do you feel like it's a challenge in comparison to your running mates?
Oh, I absolutely think it's a strength.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I have extremely diverse experience.
Yeah,
so
you
I
do.
think a lot of the people that are running have experience in maybe one or two areas of law. I've done so much.
Yeah.
I've done criminal cases. I've even handled a murder trial.
Wow.
But I've also done civil cases, whether it be personal injury, or I've done estate litigation, I've done normal civil litigation, but then also the consumer protection, the family law, all of those different things. So it's really, when we talk about the Court of Common Pleas, you're talking about a court that sees everything. Everything goes through the Court of Common Pleas, and you don't know when you're running for judge what you're going to handle.
Yeah.
You have to be ready to handle all of those cases. So you could be the most experienced criminal attorney in the world, and if you get a civil case, that doesn't help.
Yeah. So diversity, you think?
I do. I actually think that having the diversity of practice, the breadth of experience, is important. And we mentioned class actions earlier. Yes, class actions go through the Court of Common Pleas at times. And I know that, I've handled class action cases. I don't think that any of my running mates have. So all of those things are very important, because when you get there, when you get on the bench, the president judge can assign you anything. And you have to be ready for all of it. So when we talk about strengths, my strength and experience is my diversity of experience, my breadth of experience.
Right. Yeah. Thank you. So running on like a political ticket, so judges are really not supposed to be like politicians, you know, they're supposed to be very unbiased. What is your take on like the different parties that people are running on for judge?
Pennsylvania tried to make it nonpartisan.
Which is hard.
It is.
Yeah.
Other states have done it differently. So
Yeah.
like a truly nonpartisan race would not have party attached in any way.
Like not identifying
Correct,
as
none
a
at
party.
all. Pennsylvania did it a little bit differently, so we actually cross-file. So you don't run nonpartisan, you have to run as a Democrat, you also run as a Republican simultaneously. So you're on both ballots, which makes it a little bit interesting in how we have to approach it.
Yeah.
It's not nonpartisan, independents don't get to vote.
Yeah.
It's a little strange how we approach it. But the reality is, whenever I'm out meeting voters and we're talking about things, I don't talk about policy, because we're not in a policy position.
No.
The Judicial Ethics Code actually tells us not to talk about policy.
Yeah.
You can't really say things like, if I'm judge, I'm going to do this.
Yeah.
Like you would if you were running for legislator or something
Yeah,
like
of
that.
course.
So our message is just really simple. It's diversity of experience. It's that I've been serving in this capacity. I know how to do the job. I'll be fair, but my colleagues trust me.
Yeah.
I'm the vice president of the Bar Association. So really, that's
you
the
were listed
message.
as super lawyer.
Yes, several years in a row, yes. And that's nomination by your colleagues.
Yeah.
So it's other lawyers who have said, this guy knows what he's doing. And that's really what we're pushing. So it's not a partisan message,
Right.
because it's not a partisan position. The message is that you want a judge who knows how to do the job. You want a judge who doesn't need to learn how to do the job, who's going to be fair, who's going to be quick, because speed is an issue. Like, we want to make sure that the docket is moving quickly.
Yeah, because the courtrooms kind of take a while.
It does. So especially our court is very, very backed up. We arguably need an 8th judge. We only have 7. We arguably need more. So a lot of people in the system end up waiting for decisions and things because they're so backed up. So we want to make sure that when you elect someone, that they're able to get to all of these things quickly, but get the decision correct, cut down on appeals, all those different things all add up. And that's the message that we're going with.
Yeah. So like during your campaign and all the canvassing and everything, and I saw that your family has been a really big support. Do you feel like a little bit of a politician, or you kind of stick to your roots?
So it's tough because you are running for office.
Yeah.
You have to run. Like you have to do everything that you would do if you were running for a political position. You have to knock on doors. You have to do the campaign mailers. You have to have the billboards. You have to do all the things that you would do because people need to learn about you and learn who you are. But at the same time, it's not a political position. You're not supposed to be political. You're not supposed to be partisan.
It's like divide, like taking that out of the aspect.
Yes, and there is a real serious debate to be had about whether or not judges should be elected at all.
Yeah.
But they are.
Yeah.
So here we are. Do I feel like a politician? You know, sometimes when I'm doing these political things, it feels that way, but it's really not supposed to.
Yeah. That's fair. Okay, so people say the courts move slow, they do sometimes, or they feel like out of touch with like the emotion aspect. So we talked about like the logic and analytical aspect. How would a judge best courtroom feel different, especially for everyday people that are walking in there for the first time?
So like I mentioned a little bit about my work as a hearing officer.
Right.
And I think what made me good in that role was predictability and efficiency. And those two things go together. Because if you were to talk to some of the lawyers who would appear before me on a regular basis, predictability creates efficiency. Here's what I mean by that. If you know how I handle things as a lawyer, you can advise your client what I'm going to do and how I'm going to do it.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Which cuts down on using court resources. So if you were a divorce lawyer, and you've been before me a couple times, and you know this is his position on alimony, this is his position on equitable distribution, you may not even need to come to me at all. So a lot of times people would not even need a hearing because they know what I would do. I'm predictable.
Yeah.
And that means we need less hearings, you need less decisions, you need less court resources. So predictability creates efficiency. But predictability also is a hallmark of a good judge, because if you do need a hearing and you do come before me, if I make one decision this way and then another decision this way and I'm throwing darts at a board,
Inconsistency, yeah.
everyone's going to want to go to hearing all the time because maybe I'll get lucky. Maybe today is the day he woke up and threw the dart over here or threw the dart over there. So how would things be different? I'm extremely predictable. I'm upfront about it. I don't hide any of my positions. Yes.
Yeah.
So my position on alimony was always the same. And if you came to me and asked for alimony, I would say, you remember my position on alimony?
Like, you know how I'm going to respond.
This is what I do. Tell me about how the facts of your case correspond to this position. And they knew that. And it made everything go quicker. I settled cases. I think I've settled 98, 99% of the cases that came before me because they knew what they were dealing with. It was fair. It was an easy process, a transparent process. As judge of the Court of Common Pleas, it would really just be expanding that. If it's criminal, if it's civil, whatever I'll be handling at the time, just a matter of being predictable, working with the lawyers, making sure that we have a transparent system, an efficient system, a predictable system. All those things make everything go quicker. Working with the lawyers to make things move quicker, which is what I've done in the Bar Association. So as part of the Bar Association, I'm on the Court and Government Relations Committee. And as a lawyer, I've always worked with the courts to try to speed things up or make things work better or more efficiently.
Yeah.
So that's what I would continue to do as judge.
It's perfect. So what is like the upbringing of why you even became a lawyer? What kind of sparked like all this like public service and like helping, giving back to the community and like, you know, like defending people? Where does that come from?
It goes all the way back to college.
Yeah.
I did not go to college thinking I was going to be a lawyer.
Oh, you didn't?
I did not. I started college in computer science.
Oh, you did? Okay.
I was a computer science major when I first started.
That's different.
Yes. And as I got involved with extracurriculars in college, I learned that advocacy is really my passion. So I would be involved with all these different groups, and we'd be working on advocating for different people or different positions.